This image in Revelation is a personal comfort for so many of us on days like today, when we're remembering those that we've lost, and we are trusting that they hunger no more, that they thirst no more, that all their tears are wiped away. And I'm grateful for this image, and I think that's a beautiful way for us to connect with it. When we read a little bit more of the context like we did today, and as you know, Revelation is notoriously difficult to interpret and know what's going on, but in that short section, it's pretty clear that what we see are the suffering people of the world, people who have been persecuted, who've been killed, who are there at the throne of God in some way, the first ones. Our suffering and the world's suffering are always connected in this text, and connected like spider webs all across our world now. Our hope is also connected. Everything is personal. As many of you know, I was on a delegation to the West Bank a little over a month ago with a group of clergy who were invited to come and see what was happening there, bear witness to the suffering there, the oppression there, to learn the personal stories of people, to sit in their living rooms and get to know them. And I went hoping and praying for moral clarity and connection and the ability to bring that connection back home to you all, to bear witness to their stories over there. I did not know I would come home with my own story. So here's your content warning. I am going to talk about my pregnancy loss today. So I know that even from talking to many of you, this is something that affects so many women and so many families. And if you need to get up and take a break, please take care of yourself and do whatever you need to do. Sabeel is the group that invited the delegation, and the assignment all along was to come and see, as Jesus invites his disciples to come and see, and then to go and tell. This is Jesus' instructions several times in the Gospels, and particularly at the resurrection when he meets Mary Magdalene, when he meets the women at the tomb, and he tells them, go and tell, right? So come and see and go and tell was the assignment. And I've told you others' stories, Liane and the Abu Diabs and some others, but I need to tell you mine, not because I feel obligated. I know that no one is pressuring me to do that, but because I feel commissioned, because I feel like it is a part of the gospel story, a small part of a bigger story, but a big part of my story. And I feel like Mary Magdalene when I come to tell you I have seen the Lord. So pray for me, because I'm not embarrassed to cry in public, but I want you to be able to understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to do my best. At almost 18 weeks pregnant, I was in the West Bank. Everything was normal with the pregnancy at that point, and I had traveled with both of my other kiddos internationally when I was pregnant. But I had a really sudden and unexpected and devastating late miscarriage. 3 OBGYNs later from 3 different countries have told me that it was going to happen wherever I was. Nothing happened to cause it. There was probably some kind of chromosomal abnormality. As the doctor in Ramallah told me, trying to communicate the best he can, it happens, like no reason. But on Sunday, I guess it was 5 weeks ago, I started having some light stomach pain and some spotting. And so I Googled everything that said this is probably normal. But I called my midwife here in Austin just to check in. And she told me to wait and see. It would likely resolve on its own. And she told me, what to look for and when to go in and get checked out. And I told her, what do I need to look for in a hospital? I'm not in the USA. I know you can't tell me where to go, but what should I be looking for? She's asked where I was, and I told her I was in the Middle East. And she said, I've actually worked extensively in the Middle East. And I said, I'm in Ramallah in Palestine. And she said, I worked in Ramallah before I came to Austin. The hospital she worked at was 5 minutes away from where I was in my hotel. She told me where to go, what to look for, and assured me that the hospital would be able to help me no matter what happened. Until then, I thought, I'm just wasting everyone's time. I don't want to interrupt the trip. When she told me she had been in Ramallah, I thought, okay, that's too specific of a miracle. I think something might be wrong. So I started packing for the hospital just in case, and then I started having some bigger cramping that felt a little bit like contractions. I had skipped dinner with the group to rest, and while I was packing up, getting ready, my water broke in the hotel. And another miracle, our group had just gotten back from dinner. Charlie Johnson, who many of you know, is my hero. He was right across the hall. He knew that I had, been keeping an eye on things. And when I yelled out for him, he came and got me to the hospital. He was steady with me, like the presence of Jesus. Those of you who know him, please, just know how wonderful he is. While I was, losing it, as you can imagine. We're walking into a public hospital in Ramallah, Palestine, where we didn't speak the language, and Ayuda did not work. Help me. Was not going to work, but as soon as we got in, someone came to help us and figured out with some sign language what was going on. As soon as I got into the maternal department and onto a table in a sonogram room, I delivered the baby, immediately, and he was gone already. There was a major language barrier, like I shared, and I, was emotional, and they were handing me Arabic paperwork and telling me I needed to go into surgery. I don't know exactly how it was all communicated, but I was losing too much blood. There was part of the placenta still attached, and I did not have a choice. I needed to go and get it taken care of. So I was signing things for anesthesia, signing things for blood transfusions, and I don't know if I signed in the right place, just trusting these nurses or midwives or whoever they were. But they got me in immediately for a D&C, which is the procedure that you might know from the Texas news, because it's the same procedure that you have when you're getting an abortion. Here in Texas, even in my kind of circumstances where the baby had already been delivered, some doctors still hesitate to do that procedure because of fear of legal ramifications, because of our situation here with maternal health care. So it is not lost on me that I received care immediately in the West Bank that I may not have been able to get here in Texas, and I'm so grateful for that. At that point, I was kind of transitioning into fear for my own life. I was thinking about my family and Dominic and Gabriel, and just thinking, I have to get home to them. I can't not get home to them. But I was there alone in the hospital. Charlie's with me, but Charlie is kind of a cowboy-looking guy. Didn't know Arabic either. All I have to communicate to them about who I am is my American passport. That's all they knew about me. So when they would ask me, you don't speak Arabic? No. you're from the USA? Yes. I would just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Lo siento. It didn't communicate either. But I tried, and I was saying, I love Palestine. I love Palestine. But I was scared because, as you know, our U.S. Tax dollars are going to bomb Palestine. So I didn't know what they were thinking of me, and I was very much out of place. But they wheeled me to the OR. I had eaten recently, so they decided to do a spinal tap instead of general anesthesia. So I was awake for the whole procedure and just kind of in shock and afraid and worried because I was American. And my anesthesiologist was by my side the whole time. He was trying to comfort me. And I don't know how he communicated, but somehow he communicated something to the effect of, it'll be okay. And I said one of the only Arabic words that I know, inshallah, like God willing. And he said, inshallah, inshallah. He said, oh, free Palestine? And I said, yes, free Palestine. So my legs are in stirrups, and we've got a curtain, cutting me off from the rest of my body. And I'm talking to this anesthesiologist and yelling free Palestine. I'm sure it was quite a sight, but I hope he communicated to the nurses who were working on me. That's why I was there. He said, do you know what's happening in Gaza? And I said, yes, I'm so sorry. And he said, I'm from Gaza. We were at that point about 50 miles away, I think, as the crow flies, from the Gaza border, where their healthcare system has been decimated for over 2 years. And I was sitting there having this procedure, knowing I might not have been able to have it in Texas, and knowing for sure I couldn't have had it in Gaza, thinking about the 1 in 4 pregnancies in Gaza that end in miscarriage or more probably there, just like they do in our communities, and thinking about those moms not being able to receive care. After the procedure was over, I was thanking my anesthesiologist, and I asked him his name, and I don't remember what it is. I was under the influence of all kinds of things. But I do remember him saying, as he was kind of wheeling me out, Palestine is your second country now. The next 6 hours I spent paralyzed in a maternity ward. Charlie sat with me, and we found out that we needed to decide about a burial, which was another thing that didn't occur to me I would need to do. But in Palestine, it's the law that anytime you miscarry, you have to bury the remains immediately. And so I sat paralyzed, deciding about a burial. And I asked him, all I could think was, I just need someone that's going to stay here to know about this and to know where he is. And so I asked Charlie to call Munther Isaac, the pastor at the Lutheran Church in Ramallah, whose book our adult Sunday school class just read. We had been to his church that morning. He had served us communion and talked with us afterwards. And so I said, will you please ask Munther to help, because I don't know what to do. And then I sent Charlie home, back to the hotel, because we knew it was going to be a while, and I needed some space. And I needed him to get some rest so he could help me the next day. So I was there, still paralyzed, in the maternity ward, which is like a big room separated into little rooms with curtains. And I realized after being there a while, like I needed a nurse. I needed to ask a question, and something was going on with my body. And no one spoke English, but there was a family next to me and the curtain over with a woman who spoke Spanish. And my Spanish I don't speak Spanish, but I speak more Spanish than I speak Arabic. And she was so kind. She had come to check on me when she heard I was from America, and she's from Brazil. Her name was Anna. And so she had come to check on me, and we had found a few words in common. Her daughter was in the next room, but she was okay. And Anna just checked on me through my whole stay there. She made sure I wasn't alone. She was like, an angel of God. She helped me get a nurse when I needed one. She offered her shoes to me when it was time for me to get up and they hadn't brought my clothes back. She brought me coffee and made me eat some breakfast. She just mothered me in that time. Mothered, not smothered. And I was so grateful. I was on the phone with Brandon a bunch throughout all of this, and Charlie was too, and was so grateful for that. But the next person that I saw that next morning, really early, was Reverend Munther. He came to the hospital and prayed with me and checked on me. And then Charlie came back. And Charlie was back with Sam, our tour guide, who had been with us the whole time before. And Sam spoke Arabic. And Sam did everything for me. He signed my name on paperwork. He went and retrieved the remains whenever it was time to go. He brought with him Susan from Jerusalem, who works in the Sabil office in Jerusalem. They sent her and Sam and a driver and another car to me. Susan did not leave my side. She talked to all my neighbors in the maternity ward and helped with their confusion. And was like a guard dog while she made me sleep for a little bit that morning. And was just family to me. I was discharged that morning, and we got the baby's remains, and we had to go straight to the cemetery. Pastor Munther had contacted the mayor of Ramallah, who helped find a place for us at the Christian cemetery, and Munther met us there. And when we arrived, he had a Palestinian flag, and he said, if it's all right, we can wrap the baby in the flag before we bury him. And so Sam, the tour guide, helped me wrap him up, and we both looked at each other and said, he's Palestinian now. And I said, so am I. We had a beautiful service that Munther led with Charlie and Sam and Susan and Joseph, the driver, and Brandon on video call. We read scripture and prayed, and Munther offered words of comfort that helped me find a meaning in this difficult moment. And then we went back to the hotel and cleaned up. My midwife was telling me to stay where I was and rest for a week, but because of where we were and because of the timing of the Jewish holiday and the likelihood of violence and roads being closed, we needed to move. So our group had already gone on to Bethlehem, and we were going to meet them back in Jerusalem. We did stop on the way, and Sam force-fed me pomegranate juice, which apparently will heal your blood. So pomegranate juice, definitely recommend. Susan from Jerusalem, who had come all the way to Ramallah to help me, got me in to her friend who is an OBGYN at a Christian Palestinian hospital in Jerusalem that is a much more well-resourced hospital, more like what we experience here in the U.S., wanted to get me double-checked after my experience in Ramallah. And so I went in to see Dr. Yazan, who just squeezed me in between patients, did a full sonogram, talked to me for a long time, gave me his personal cell phone number to call or WhatsApp if I had any questions, and wouldn't let me pay him, just did it totally off the books. I hid from our group for a while that night, but the next day we needed to get out. We needed to cross into Jordan again because of the timing of everything. And the bridge that we were supposed to take was closed, and we needed to go further up. It was a long ordeal that Palestinians have to deal with all the time. But we needed to move. So again, the cohort, all of the pastors were so great. Toph did everything for me. I was so grateful that he was there, so thank you for supporting that. I really was worried about not having been able to get anything for my kids because they expect prizes when I go on trips, as I'm sure you know. And I hadn't had a chance to go shopping, obviously. And so Toph arranged with our driver to make sure that we could stop at somewhere, some Palestinian-owned place on our way to Jordan before we left. And so we did. We stopped at this co-op in Jericho, and I knew we didn't have a long time, so I just ran right in and started grabbing anything, these little bracelets and toys, whatever I could find. And one of the shop owners came up to me and he said, "You're Palestinian, right?" And I was like, "No, but yes." And I was looking at this keffiyeh, and he grabbed it and started putting it on my head. I was having such a hard time that morning just moving forward, and it felt like, maybe it was just a sales tactic, but it felt like such a kind, like welcoming, almost like an ordination of this stranger putting this keffiyeh on me and showing me how to tie it. I didn't wear it on my head today, but I made it into a stole. So did that, got some stuff, walked out with more gifts than what I paid for. Somehow they were giving me dates, which I passed on to Fatty, and giving us candies, which some of you have tried. And then went and got some more pomegranate juice for my blood. They squeeze it fresh on the side of the road. And then made our way to the crossing, which, as I said, is a big ordeal. It takes the whole day, even though it's just like right there. You can't go in and out of Palestine without going through Israeli customs. There's not a way to do that because it's an occupied territory. And on our way into Palestine, Toph had been stopped and flagged, and it took us a couple extra hours for them to interrogate and him to wait on all of that. And so we knew that that could happen. And sure enough, when we were going back out 2 days after the miscarriage, it was me that they stopped and pulled out for extra security. I don't know why. I don't know if it's random. Maybe I really did look Palestinian, so I'll take that as a compliment if so. But I got stopped and pulled into a different part of the, I won't bore you with all the logistics, but it was in like a different part of the building where they put my luggage through security and things. And my whole group was in this other side, and they're freaking out and worried about me. And Robert Wallace, who's a friend of Brandon's actually, who was on the trip, was just decided to stop and pray. He told me about this later, because I was just sitting kind of stranded by myself without my passport, so I can't go anywhere at that point. And he heard somebody in this loud kind of customs area where he was on one side and our group was in the middle. He heard somebody on the other side call my name or something that sounded like maybe my name. Nobody else heard it, but he said he felt like the room just got quiet and he heard Natalie, or something like that, and heard it and sprinted across and was able to say, they took her somewhere else. She's not here. And then they were able to come and find me and get me through there. So another, what I take as a miracle for sure. We got to Jordan finally, and I had a day to rest and just watch for any signs of a problem. I was watching for a fever. It was one thing I was supposed to watch for because you don't want to get on a plane if you have a chance of starting to have a problem on a 12-hour flight. Do you know what I mean? That would be very bad. Which also I feel very lucky about the timing of when I lost the baby, because if it had been a few days before or a few days after and it had happened on an airplane, like I just don't even know I don't know how that would work. So I feel very grateful for where I was. But anyway, at the hotel I asked for a thermometer, and the owner was at the desk, and he said, "Do you want me to take you to the hospital? What's going on?" And so I told him, "No, I had a miscarriage a couple days ago. I just need to check my temperature." And the next thing I knew, he had snapped at someone, and I had a glass of orange juice in one hand and a thermometer in another, and he was telling me about his wife's experiences with miscarriage. I had my cohort who took such good care of me, Robin and Jennifer, my friends from CBF and from Virginia, helped me find seeds for Fatty that I really needed to find, and toys for the boys. Sharon and Anime brought me olive wood carvings from Bethlehem since I didn't get to go. Kyle and Jay, who know my family, reached out to my parents, to my uncle, just to make sure they knew that they had eyes on me and I was okay. And Toph got me to the airport and back home, including a trip to the clinic in Jordan, because I was panicking about everything at that point, where they also wouldn't let me pay for anything. They just sent me on my way. He got me through lounges and security checks where I just kind of followed him around like a zombie. And I was so grateful because we weren't with the rest of the group. When I got home, I got home to multiple meal trains and cards and flowers from you all. So much compassion and lots of gentle Me Too's from so many of you. Brandon and Dominic and Gabriel have helped me and have helped each other to grieve in our own ways. And before all this happened, the boys had wanted to name the baby Phoenix, and I don't know why or where it came from, but they were convinced that that was going to be the baby's name, and I wasn't so sure about that. But after all this happened, I decided that was just right, and so we named him Phoenix. We're calling him Baby Finn, and that's our symbol of resurrection, and a reminder of a child, a little brother, who is resting in Ramallah, which is the biblical Ephraim, which you might remember is the place where Jesus went to rest before his crucifixion. So, I'm really sad that baby Finn's life was so short, but I'm really grateful that it is full of so much meaning and that so many living saints surrounded him and me in those days. I think I preach about God being with the suffering all the time, and I do believe that and believed that before, that God is with those who suffer and that in a special way, and that God works through those who are suffering in a special way. But this is my gospel story of God being with me in my suffering, through people who are suffering unimaginably. I'm not going to try to tie it up in a nice sermon bow, but I am going to read, if I can, I'm going to read a little small excerpt from Pastor Munther's words that he read to me at the baby's burial, if that's okay. Okay. My dear sister Natalie, in Psalm 34:18, we read, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted." We are deeply moved by your presence among us. You came to Palestine out of love, solidarity, and sacrifice, to stand with the oppressed and the marginalized, and to bear witness to truth, and to defend the integrity of the gospel. And in the midst of this journey, you endured a personal loss that we grieve with you today. With this child now resting in Palestine, you leave with us a piece of your own family, a piece of your heart. This is not a burden you expected to carry, but it has become a profound sign of how deeply we are united. Our lives, our faith, and our struggles for humanity and justice are bound together. You did not know that you would leave a part of yourself in this land. Yet I believe this will always remain a sacred reminder of our shared story, our shared tears, and our shared hope. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I pray that you will feel connected, both in your own suffering with mine and with that of the world, and that you will be emboldened to tell your stories too. Amen.